whiteboard. I'm going to use it to show you about the order of operations. Order of operations is the order in which you do a math problem. There's 5 steps, and if you follow them, there ain't no math problem that you can't tackle. Here they are. Oh, you should write this down. First thing you want to do is your grouping symbols. Grouping symbols are your parentheses, your brackets, and your braces. You can think about grouping symbols kind of like groping. They have numbers together. First ones that you want to handle are the parentheses. Meaning that you want to work all the math inside the parentheses that you can before you move on to the braces. Brackets, rather, brackets. Brackets come second. Work all the math that you can inside of the brackets. Then you move on to the pretty lady braces, my favorite. They're my favorite just because they're fun to draw. Pretty lady braces don't happen very often in math problems, but when they do, you work them third. So when I say work the math, there's a sequence of steps that go along with what to do once you've found yourself inside a set of parentheses. First thing you do is you look for some exponents. So exponents tell you how many times to take a number and times it by itself. So if you see like a little number 2, you would take whatever the big number is, multiply it by itself twice. 3, take the big number, multiply it by itself 3 times, so on and so forth. So after that, steps 3 and 4, you work as you would a sentence in English. You read them from left to right. So the next thing you're going to do is multiply from left to right. Multiply and divide from left to right. A little bit sloppy, as I tend to be, but this is my shorthand for left and right. Next, you do the same thing with add and subtract. Add and subtract as it comes from left to right. Okay, the very last thing that you ever do with any math problem at all is you simplify a fraction. If you have a fraction as a final answer, it's only a good final answer if it's simplified. So that's the last thing you do with any math problem. So let's try these steps out on a real math problem. Here's our real math problem. What you're going to notice is that there's no grouping symbols. So you skip that step number 1 entirely. What you're going to do first is this little exponent right here. This tells us to take a 5, times it by another 5. So, exponents first. Okay, if you're stuck in a math class right now, you've probably been told that this little dot right here means times. Whenever you see that little dot, you're going to times some stuff. In this case, we're going to times a 3 by a 25. Because we've cleared our exponents, the next thing you do is multiply and divide from left to right. Okay, so you're going to notice that each time I do this, I rewrite. So every time I rewrite, I start the sentence brand new, reading it from left to right. So now what we've got is we've got only addition and subtraction symbols up here. So we're going to take them from left to right, step by step. Might seem like too many steps for you, but give it a try, rewriting each and every time. I reckon that you'll come out with the right answer more often. So take a 6, add a 75 to it. I believe that leaves us with an 81. Bring down the -4. Very last thing that we're going to do is subtract. 81, take away 4, 77. There we go. First order of operations problem. Let's do another one. Okay, here's our next one. As you can see, we got all kinds of grouping symbols going on here. So, we're going to start with the innermost grouping symbols. That's your parentheses right here. We're going to do these 4 steps inside the parentheses in whatever order they come. So, if you look at your math problem here, we're starting in these parentheses. What's most important is that exponent right there. So we're going to say 3 times 3 for a 9 before we go anywhere else. So carefully rewrite this. We're still not done doing the math inside the parentheses. So we took care of the exponents inside of the parentheses. Now we're going to take care of the multiply, divide, whatever we got here. We got some division. So we're going to take that 36, divide by the 9, we're going to turn that into a 4. So it becomes a positive 4, so there's going to be a different story when we got a negative inside the parentheses, but because we can answer this with a positive 4, lift the parentheses. So now, what we've got in here is we had this 4. Now we start over with the order of operations, dealing with these brackets here. All we've got is some addition in there. So we're going to say negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. This is the exception to the rule. Because we've got a negative 2 here, this negative 2 right here, you want to keep these brackets. The reason that you want to keep them is because it's really easy for a negative to go missing if you don't keep it wrapped up in brackets or braces or parentheses. The other reason that you have to keep this number wrapped up in its brackets is on account of this little 2 right here. This 2 stuck onto these brackets means times. Anytime you got a number stuck onto the front of parentheses, brackets, braces, always means times. So we're going to take care of this times next. Negative 7 comes down. A positive times a negative is a negative. So we got a negative 4 here. So, last thing we got to do, all of our grouping symbols are gone. We've got a little subtraction problem here. Subtracting negative numbers, subtracting sign numbers is one of the more difficult things that you want to do. Gonna do rather. It's so cute and small, it looks easy, but it's actually a little bit tough. So there's 2 ways to think about this. You can say, okay, I'm in the hole $7, I spent another 4, all right, that means now I owe the bank negative $11. Or what you can do is, you see that invisible plus sign right there? You can change it to the opposite of what it is, so long as you change this to the opposite of what it is. So we're going to do something here. We're going to change this to a plus and this to a minus. Now what you're doing is you're adding a couple of negative numbers. It's a little bit easier to see sometimes. So I got 7 and 4. I know that's 11. They're both negative, so stick a negative sign on your answer. That's the answer to that problem. Let's do a couple more. Alright, here's our next problem. We got a fraction this time. This is a big, ugly fraction. So, we're going to take it a little piece at a time. Order of operations still applies no matter how big and ugly the fraction is. So, see how we got some grouping symbols here? Those parentheses up there, that means that we're going to deal with those first. So, inside the parentheses, times is more important than subtraction, so do your times first. So you got a negative 3 times 4. Negative times a positive. So, rewriting this, we got 2 negative times a positive is a negative 12. All that business is squared. So we got all these exponents up here, and we got some subtraction. So it seems funny that I'm going to tell you to do the subtraction first. But notice that we've got these parentheses. Parentheses supersede everything. Whatever's happening in there is the most important. If you can do math inside the parentheses, do the math inside the parentheses. So in this case, we're going to say 2 take away 12. So 2 take away 12 is negative 10. Stick that exponent on the outside of the parentheses. Okay, so now we're going to take care of all of these exponents. So what you're going to notice, I'm going to rewrite this right over here. Oops, I'm going to use black. Negative 10 squared means this. Negative 10 times negative 10. Negative times a negative is a positive. So we're going to turn this into a positive 100. So we're going to do this, we're going to take care of this, and we're going to take care of this right now. So I got 3 times 3 for a 9, plus 4 times 4 for a 16. So the last thing that you ever do is simplify a fraction, so we're going to take care of this addition on the bottom before we simplify our fraction. So I'm going to rewrite this over here. We're going to do this addition. So I got 100 over 25. Now we take into consideration the very last step, which is simplify a fraction. So a fraction is nothing more than a division problem in disguise. This really says 100 divided by 25. 100 divided by 25 is 4, right? Yeah, so write it down. That's your final answer. Nice job. Okay, these are our last two problems for this lesson. Notice how they look almost identical. The only difference being, got some cute little parentheses here, no cute parentheses here. So we're going to do these problems separately. I'm going to take this one on first because this is just like the one we did last time. Remember that 10 squared, or negative 10 squared for 100? This says the same thing. So this says a negative 4 times a negative 4. A negative times a negative is positive. So the answer to this question is positive 16. I'll finish that problem in a second. I want to do a direct comparison with this one over here. This one doesn't have parentheses. So the lesson here is an exponent only belongs to what it is directly attached to. It is not attached to this negative sign, it is only attached to this 4. So what this is really saying, believe it or not, is 4 times 4 for 16. This is a secret invisible negative 1 here. So what this is really telling you, believe it or not, this does take a little bit of believing, a little bit of faith before you can trust this. So what this is saying, really, is negative 1 times 4 squared. Okay? So you know that you do exponents before you multiply. So you're going to say your 4 times your 4 for your 16 times a negative 1 for negative 16. The answer to this little piece of the math problem is negative 16. So what I want you to notice here is these math problems are almost identical. This one came out positive because 2 negatives is a positive when multiplied. This one came out negative simply because this negative sign has no business with this exponent right here. So let's finish these math problems. So you know by now that you want to, whoopsie, I got an extra one there. You know by now that you want to divide before you add. So divide here. So I got 16 plus 2 for 18. Same deal over here. Turn this into a 2. So I got negative 16 plus 2 for, what is that, negative 14. All right, vastly different answers. And the only thing that caused those vastly different answers were these cute little parentheses right here. So they're very important, and you've got to pay attention to them. The only way to get good at this stuff is practice. So open your math book. Thanks a lot. My name's Nicole. I'm a math teacher.